伤。 Avec le nouveau Google Pixel 6, vous pouvez prendre de superbes photos et vidéos. Ce qui veut dire
Input lag, button-to-pixel delay, and end-to-end system latency are some of the terms used by gamers to describe how responsive a game feels. Testing system latency used to be a very expensive and extremely time-consuming process. Even with a small sample size of just 20 tests, the entire process could easily take more than 2 hours. This is why these tests usually focus on just 3 values: the longest or maximum delay, the average delay, and the shortest or minimum delay. While that data is very useful, it does not tell us anything about how stable or predictable the end-to-end latency of a system is. To look into that, I must increase the sample size, which is now finally possible thanks to NVIDIA's new latency measuring tool called LDAT. With LDAT, I can now increase the sample size from 20 to 200, and instead of spending many hours counting frames to get the results, I can see them in real time on the monitor of a second PC. So in today's video, which was kindly sponsored by NVIDIA, I use Fortnite to show you how the frame rate and the refresh rate of your monitor not only affect how responsive a game feels, but also how stable and predictable that response to your input is. All tests were done at 1080p with the low graphics preset, VSync and G-Sync were disabled, the in-game frame rate limiter was used to lock the frame rate at a specific value, and the reflex low latency mode was disabled as the system was never GPU bound in any of the tests. So with a sample size of 200, a refresh rate of 60 Hz and the frame rate locked at 60 FPS, I measured a maximum delay of 44.7 milliseconds, an average delay of 28.9 milliseconds, and the minimum or shortest delay of 11.5 milliseconds. But when I show you the values of all 200 samples, then it gets clear that system latency is about more than just the longest, average, and shortest delays. The standard deviation helps us to quantify how stable or consistent the end-to-end latency of a system is, as it gives us a range around the average value inside which 68% of the measured latency values fall. So when we add that info here, then at 60 Hz and 60 FPS, 68% of all measured values fall between 36.4 and 21.5 milliseconds. This then helps us to understand how stable or predictable the system latency is. Now, when I keep the refresh rate at 60 Hz and only change the in-game frame rate limiter from 60 to 144 FPS, then this leads to less system latency .
Running. Cross.
If you're a gamer, there's no question you should absolutely get a high refresh rate monitor. Upgrading to a 144 or a 240 Hz monitor means the screen is refreshing itself 144 or 240 times a second, which makes gameplay look and feel so much smoother than a regular 60 Hz screen. It can even give you a competitive advantage. Aiming feels more precise, feedback from your inputs feels more immediate, and you can react faster thanks to the reduced latency and blur. Although even all of this can't make up for my fairly terrible gaming skills. Hey guys, I'm Tom the Tech Jap, and I've teamed up with NVIDIA and also eBuyer.com to bring you this video, which is all about showing you the real-world gaming benefits of a higher refresh rate monitor. And if you do find it useful, it would be amazing if you could click that like and also subscribe button down below. Now, some of this is similar to my recent Samsung 240Hz video, but I want to go further here. And as I said in that video, the tricky part to this is actually being able to show you the benefits of high refresh in a YouTube video that's capped at 60 FPS. But there is a way around it, and that's by showing you footage in slow motion, so you can actually see how many extra frames you get, which hopefully will give you some idea of how it might look at normal speed. But having said that, if you can, I definitely try and see this in person for yourself. Maybe you can go to an electronics store and maybe they'll have one to show you, or a friend's house, because really you do have to see it in person to get the full experience. Now, to show you what I mean, let's look at some side-by-side game footage at 144Hz 1440p and 240Hz at 1080p. And I've recorded all of this with an AVA media capture card. So it's pretty clear, especially in slow motion, quite how smooth movement and actions are compared to 60 Hz. And at full speed, this can genuinely transform how a game plays. To be clear, while a refresh rate is the number of frames the monitor can display in a second, the actual number of frames you'll see, your FPS, will depend on the game, the graphic settings, and how powerful your PC is, but we'll come back to this. So why does it make a difference? Well, for every frame on a 60 Hz screen, we get 2.4 frames with a 144 Hz monitor and 4 frames with a 240 Hz one. This means gameplay can be much smoother, and the step up from 60 to 144 Hz is a huge improvement. And while the change from 144 to 240 Hz is not as obvious, it's still very impressive. In either case, it makes a big difference, particularly in fast-paced, competitive multiplayer games. So it's smoother and it looks nicer, but can a high refresh monitor actually make you win more in games? Well, personally, yeah, I reckon it could. So having low input lag and low response times are important as well on any gaming monitor, but so is the frame rate. The time between frames at 60 Hz adds a lot to the lag you perceive between clicking the mouse and seeing the result on the screen. And so as the time between frames at higher refresh rates is lower, the action appears on the screen quicker. Nvidia actually ran a recent study where they found players with higher frame rates got better overall win ratios. For example, say an enemy is coming around the corner. If you're getting more frames in a given second, there's a chance you'll see them several frames earlier than you would on a normal 60 Hz screen, which is all important where quick reactions make the difference between winning and, well, usually in my case, not winning. So the higher the frame rate, the more up-to-date visual information you're getting, which could give you an advantage. Now to my eye, and actually even harder to show you, is that the image also appears to be a bit clearer thanks to reduced ghosting, which is that weird effect where moving objects leave a blurry trace of where they were in the previous frame. And so as you get more frames in a given second, the effect is reduced. Of course, you can reduce it even further by choosing a monitor with a variable refresh rate, such as G-Sync, which also removes ugly screen tearing and stutter. But there is something else to consider, because while these monitors can output 144 and 240 Hz refresh rates, which is great, it's actually up to your PC or your laptop to determine whether you take full advantage of that. If you're only getting 100 FPS in Apex or PUBG, then you're obviously not maxing out that 144 or even 240 Hz refresh. So the actual frame rate that you get will very much depend on the kind of games you play. Obviously less demanding titles can let you max out these displays more easily, but if you play graphically intensive AAA titles, then you'll probably need to drop your settings or even invest in a more powerful graphics card. But it's worth bearing in mind that even if you can't max out the monitor right now, chances are if you upgrade your PC in the future, then you'll be able to take better advantage of it. And of course, high refresh doesn't just benefit games. Everyday desktop tasks feel much smoother, from scrolling through web pages, moving windows around, or even just something as simple as moving the mouse cursor. It all feels smoother and more precise. Okay, next question. 144 Hz versus 240, which is better? I mean, the answer should seem obvious, but actually it comes down to the games that you play. I actually think 144 Hz is the better choice for most people. They're cheaper, gaming on them is still light years better than a 60 Hz monitor, and also given current graphics technology, you're more likely to stand a chance of hitting frame rates close to what they offer. You can also find high quality 1440p panels at 144 Hz, whereas right now, 240 Hz models tend to be limited to 1080p. However, if you're all about that speed, and particularly if you play less demanding competitive games like Overwatch or CSGO, then I think you should consider a 240Hz 1080p to get the best advantage. But you'll probably still want to dial down some graphic settings or have a fairly powerful rig in order to get close to that magic 240 FPS. In terms of pricing, a 24-inch 144Hz monitor will start from around £140, which isn't that much more than a 60Hz screen, whereas 240Hz models start at just under £300. And if you do want to find out more and you're not already sick to death of the way I say the word monitor, then check out my full 2019 buying guide by clicking the little card at the top right. I've also put a link to ebuy.com, I use these guys all the time, where you can find a wide selection of great high refresh rate monitors. And breathe. Okay, we made it, we got to the end. Thank you so much for sticking with me. I really hope that was useful, and if you did enjoy it, it would mean the world to me if you could hit that like and subscribe button below. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and I'll see you next
Now, I know what you're going to say. You're going to say, Paul, you're a fucking moron. What do you know about high refresh rate gaming? I have a high refresh rate monitor. There it is there. And I know that this panel is better than this panel. But you got to stick with me for the reason why you shouldn't buy a 144Hz monitor if you've never had one. Genuinely, you shouldn't, right? Only if you've never had one. But I'm just going to show you this. This is a channel I really like. Why won't it come up? There we go. David does tech stuff. He's a nice YouTuber. He doesn't seem to have as many subscribers. He does 20 times better videos than I do. Puts way more effort and time into it. You should subscribe to this guy. He does really goofy, wacky videos. But I seen this video today. I really liked it. Can a noob tell the difference between 144Hz, and 60Hz playing PC? So basically, gets his friend, girlfriend, sister. I don't know who she is, and I hope you never do this. But it's like smoking, right? When you're a kid, 15, 16, 17, your friends are smoking. They're like, "Hey, Paul, have a..."
Yo guys, Code Life here. So in today's video guys, I'm going to be showing you all how to set up a 144Hz or 240Hz refresh rate monitor. Now since it's Black Friday, I thought it'd be the perfect time to do this tutorial, as I'd imagine that there'll be many of you out there that have taken advantage of today's global discount.
Monitors. Bring high-performance gaming and small footprint together with the all-new Corsair One. Available with up to an Intel 9th Gen 9900K processor and an RTX 2080 Ti, this small PC is capable of big things. Convection-assisted cooling with separate loops for the CPU and GPU means the Corsair One sucks, in the best way possible. To see our review of the new Corsair One i160, click the link in the description below.
Day to buy yourselves a brand new high refresh rate monitor. If you have, good move. Honestly, monitor upgrades are something I always recommend for people to do, and I'll explain why I recommend them in just a little bit. But if you guys still haven't made the upgrade yet, don't feel like you've missed out. There is still Cyber Monday that's coming up in the next few days, and that starts on Monday the 2nd of December. Now let's say that you guys have already gotten or plan on getting your new monitor. You'll want to make sure that it's set up correctly so that you know that you're definitely playing on the highest refresh rate that monitor supports. To find this out guys, it's super simple. You firstly want to make sure that it's connected via the correct cables. A very common issue that people have with these high refresh rate monitors is sometimes they don't use the right cables, as certain cables only support certain refresh rates. Usually though, whichever cable comes with your monitor, like in the box, it will support that refresh rate usually. But if it doesn't, which some monitors still don't to this day, I'm not sure why, I'll quickly list some cables that support each refresh rate. So for the 144Hz 1080p support, we've got the dual link DVI-D cable, the DisplayPort 1.2 cable, and the HDMI 2.0 cable. All of these three and the higher versions of each cable do support the 144Hz and 240Hz refresh rates, so if you guys are using either of these cables, you should be good to go. I will also quickly say that there is lower versions of each of these cables that are cheaper, which you could go for, but as standard, these cables what I've shown you guys right now should do you just fine. Next up, after you guys have got your cables all sorted and connected properly, you'll then want to go onto your desktop and configure the refresh rate. To do this, there's two ways. One way of doing it is via Windows, and the other way of doing it is via the NVIDIA control panel. For Windows, you want to go onto the desktop, right click and select the display settings, scroll down, click advanced, and in here you want to select the display adapter, and in there under the monitor tab, you'll then be able to change your refresh rate. Simply select the highest one out of all of the options, and boom, you're good to go. If you guys are on NVIDIA like me, just head back over to your desktop, right click and open the NVIDIA control panel. In here you want to select the change resolution under the display tab, and in the change resolution setting you want to make sure that 1920 by 1080 is selected, and then you'll be able to change your refresh rate. For me, I'm currently using a 144Hz monitor, so I'll select 144Hz. Though if you guys do have a higher one like 244Hz that is an option, you'll definitely want to select that one. If these different Hertz options aren't appearing for you guys, don't worry, there is a fix for this. To fix it, just head back into the NVIDIA control panel and select the Configure Surround under the 3D Settings tab. In here you want to check the little picture of your graphics card and make sure that your high refresh rate monitor is connected to the first port on your graphics card. If it's in number 2 or 3, you definitely want to put it into number 1, and that should fix the issue. Also, one more other thing to mention guys is that there's this myth going on right now where some people are saying that if your second or third monitors are 60Hz and your main gaming monitor is a higher hertz, for example a 144 or 240 hertz, these second and third monitors will overwrite that refresh rate of the main gaming monitor and will set it to 60 hertz. That, guys, is completely not true at all. Each monitor does have their individual refresh rate, which you guys can all change. So don't believe that myth, guys. It is a complete lie. But I thought I'd still mention it just in case there is anyone out there that did believe it. But yeah, guys, that's how you set up a 144 or 240Hz monitor. It's super easy, as you guys just seen. If you do encounter any issues when setting up your monitor, pop them in the comments below, guys, and I will try and help you out the best I can.
Il faut briser les barrières et passer au niveau supérieur. Restez dans votre élément en visitant loadedlife.com.
Hey, what's going on, guys? So I want to make a follow-up video to a NVIDIA control settings, best settings that I did about a month ago, and I actually did fairly well, and there was a lot of my NVIDIA control panel again. Click it, and then click Properties. Line and also help just to optimize your PC. So if you go into your little Windows button there and go to Documents, scroll on down to your C drive, right click it, and then click Properties. Right down here it will say Disk Cleanup. Clicking that, and then you can select what you want to clean up. So temporary internet files is the big key here. Making sure that's selected. Scrolling down. My point. And then going into your GeForce Experience app and then just making sure that your drivers are up to date. So that for me right now, it optimize your PC. So if you go into your little Windows button there and go to Documents, scroll on down to your C drive, right click it, and then click Properties. Right down here it will say Disk Cleanup. Clicking that, and then you can select what you want to clean up. So temporary internet files is the big key here. Making sure that's selected. Scrolling down, looking at, even temporary files, you might want to check that. Downloads is the only one that you might not want to do if you have some downloads that you don't want to get rid of it. So anyways, hit OK, that'll clean that up. Good to go there. Before I get into the NVIDIA settings, the one thing that drove me nuts, and I can't believe I had it on this entire time, it actually feels way better, my game feels so much smoother, is Game Bar. So the Xbox Game Bar on PC. So if you just type in Game Mode settings, it'll pop this up. Game mode I have on, and that is if you have, I believe, the latest Windows update. That one you might want to do a little research on. I have it on because it was suggested, I think, through a Jarian video or something I watched, to have that on if you have a latest update. But for me, I have it on. If we go down to Game Bar, this thing I had on forever. And until recently, I turned it off. My game feels way better, looks better. And maybe it's a placebo for me, but I turned it off, and I read online, there's not too much on it, but I read online that used to cause a lot of issues with games. I don't know if it does so much now, but for me turning it off, my game felt faster. I felt more responsive. I felt like the input delay was way less, and it just looked cleaner. So again, that might just be me, but turn that off, play around with it, and just see if that might benefit you. So some quick tips there for you. Let's hop over into the NVIDIA settings, and I'm going to show you there's not too much. So if you just type in Game Mode settings, it'll pop this up. Game mode I have on, and that is if you have, I believe, the latest Windows update. That one you might want to do a little research on. I have it on because it was suggested, I think, through a Jarian video or something I watched, to have that on if you have a latest update. But for me, I have it on. If we go down to Game Bar, this thing I had on forever. And until recently, I turned it off. My game feels way better, looks better. And maybe it's a placebo for me, but I turned it off, and I read online, there's not too much on it, but I read online that used to cause a lot of issues with games. I don't know if it does so much now, but for me turning it off, my game felt faster. I felt more responsive. I felt like the input delay was way less, and it just looked cleaner. So again, that might just be me, but turn that off, play around with it, and just see if that might benefit you. So some quick tips there for you. Let's hop over into the NVIDIA settings, and I'm going to show you, we'll go through what I've found to be the best for me. Okay, so in my NVIDIA settings, in my last video, very similar. I'm not going to go through each and every one, but what I'll do instead is just kind of scroll down here. So that way you can follow and just copy what I have. And this is pretty standard. There's so many videos out there that have these exact same settings for Fortnite. But again, I'll slowly scroll through it, maybe even zoom in on the video so that way you see it and you can pause it. What I wanted to talk about specifically, I didn't get into the last one, but after doing more research, there's a couple things here. The low latency mode, that you should have to off. And I know there's videos out there that say you should have that on. My last video, I said you should have it on ultra. Well, that can be fine and it'll probably play fine, but you should have it to off if your GPU is not being maxed out or the load is not 99. And you can tell by, you know, a lot of different software out there. I think MSI Afterburner has an overlay when you're playing a game, or NZXT Cam for my case has a overlay to show if my GPU is being maxed out. Fortnite is a very CPU driven game, so I would doubt it's getting maxed out unless then you're on an old computer. So have that off. Otherwise, you're actually going to get input delay. So I didn't know that last time. You're actually going to have input delay a little bit through your game if you have that on or ultra and your GPU is not being maxed out. So that's a key thing. Frame rate, G-Sync, V-Sync. So if you have a G-Sync monitor, this is what I played around with. I actually turned mine off because I feel like I don't have an input delay with it off. This goes back to blurbusters.com. You can do this and it will be fine. You can max it out, let's say on a 144 hertz monitor. You can max it out at 141. You can also, you know, just leave it that way and then copy all the other settings. You can also go down here and turn on vertical sync, and I'll explain why. Your game will look amazing. It seriously looked amazing for me, like just butter. It looks so good. If we go over to Blurbusters, and let's see if I can scroll this over here for you. So on Blurbusters website, specifically this chart right here, it talks about having G-Sync, V-Sync off, the bottom one on that chart. Talks about having G-Sync plus V-Sync off and capping your frames at 142 on each one of these scenarios. And then the top one is G-Sync plus V-Sync in the NVIDIA control panel that I showed you, also capping it at 142. The input delay is 1 millisecond higher than the other two. And you're saying, well, that's not much. No, I'm sorry, it's 1 millisecond higher than the middle option. It's 2 milliseconds higher than just having it off. So you're actually gonna get a little bit more input delay having that on. Also, I've seen online that if you're using the NVIDIA max frame rate, which is this, that can also add input delay. So input delay meaning that when you click your mouse button, how fast, how responsive is it to the actual game. Fortnite, if you're trying to be competitive, you want it to be fast. You want to be able to, you know, edit and shoot and all that stuff quickly. Over the last month of playing around with this, I could tell there was input delay on my 144 hertz monitor. As awesome as the game looked, I could tell that there was input delay. So that's why I've gone back to having my max frame rate off, turning vertical sync off, and then in my in-game settings, let's go back to the in-game and I'll show you what I do for those settings. All right, guys, let's look at the in-game settings, and this shouldn't be anything too new to you. Might have one recommendation for you, but looking at my frame rate, again, back to my setup, 144 hertz monitor, I have it capped at 160. It's out there, it's been out there that it just plays better. It might help with any hitches or frame drops, capping it one tier above your max monitor refresh rate. We're gonna skip some of these things because it's pretty generic. Graphics quality, it's really up to you, but I think everyone knows you should probably have this on low and then crank up your 3D resolution to 100. And then down below, advanced graphics settings, V-Sync, never have that on in the game. That would cause more input delay. Motion blur, obviously off. Frames per second, you can have it on. DirectX version. DirectX 12, I tried it. it's been very buggy for me, so I'm using 11, and it just works better, I believe. I know Booga and some of those guys use DirectX 11, specifically around the NVIDIA control panel settings. Some of those things I think just work better with DirectX 11. But to finish it off, use GPU crash debugging. Just have that off. If you have that on, it's gonna give you some performance costs, so no need to have that on. The only other thing I noticed on here, really probably not that crucial, but if you scroll down in the second tab up here all the way down, NVIDIA highlights, I turn that off, and that goes back to that game bar that I recommended, that you go in and change my computer, my gameplay drastically. Just have that off, so nothing's recording in the background for any wins or kills. Specifically, if you're not using it, then why even have it? If you turn off that game bar in the settings like I showed you, I think that should take care of it. But that's it, guys. If you enjoyed this video, and if you're copying these settings, let me know down in the comments below. I appreciate the support. Shout out to anybody using my code, creator code LongJohns in the item shop. That means a lot to me. And last but not least, if you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. I really appreciate the support.
One enemy remaining. Last player standing.
Rotating the B through spawn.
Just two window, one up down.
Out of charges. Revealing area. There they are.
Spike planted. Last player standing. Train high. One enemy remaining. You fought well.
That's almost the ace. That whipped all shots.
Happens.
Shower's head, I think bombs down.
I see the spike.
Bombs down the shower.
Enemy spotted. Blocking sight.
Yeah, they did. I think they were. Planting.
Spike planted. One enemy remaining.
Oh my god, how did it? I hit him 5 times.
sight.
Cubby.
Joke's over! You're dead!
Blocking sight.
Multiple enemies. Enemy spotted.
Having to be long. Oh fuck, we're all dead.
Last player standing. Spike planted.
Omen hit 80, Phoenix hit 80, Sage hit 50.
Stealing sight.
I might even just save the gun here, to be honest.
Flawless.
Yeah, inside.
I didn't mean to break your concentration. My bad.
Let's all save, unless you guys come back.
No charges left. No charges left. Enemy spotted. Enemy kill.
Because
One in bathroom.
Fuck me, I have a pistol.
Spike planted. Last player standing.
Hit a fucking shot. Fuck. He's to your right. Last time I saw him. He's not there.
Revealing area. My ult is ready.
Jesus Christ.
Marc Bédard a un plan. Un plan d'affaires afin d'électrifier les transports. Monsieur Bédard a fondé son entreprise, Lion Électrique, en 2008, dans le but de révolutionner l'industrie canadienne du transport scolaire. À la lumière de la multiplication des préoccupations entourant l'environnement et les changements climatiques, il a pris la décision audacieuse de se consacrer à la production exclusive de véhicules électriques en 2010. Lion, aujourd'hui chef de file en matière d'électrification des transports en Amérique du Nord, est fière de son innovation technologique. Elle conçoit et fabrique des autobus et autobus scolaires et une gamme de camions urbains entièrement électriques. Grâce à des programmes comme le Programme canadien de crédit bail fournisseur de la HSBC, Lion peut offrir des options de financement à ses clients pour les aider à faire la transition vers une flotte de véhicules électriques. À titre de Banque mondiale, la HSBC peut également offrir du soutien transfrontalier à l'entreprise à mesure qu'elle poursuit sa croissance. Lion prévoit ouvrir une usine de fabrication de véhicules électriques en Illinois et une usine de fabrication.
Sage, the life you give. Do you ever wonder where it's taken from?
Let me know if they're cubby.
We can push them back.
Get out of my way.
Joke's over! You're dead!
Enemy down.
Spike planted.
Me on the res on the left side. Body.
Rip.
This guy left side, left side. Wait, how do you? Oh, never mind. I'm dumb.
Enemy spotted.
One enemy remaining.
Great.
Wait at least.
We got some kills, huh?
Let's take at least one down with us.
One more. One B.
Jed hit 80 A short.